Let's take a listen at this video.
Sami, so listen talk about Netanyahu over this past year. He set off with a series of strategic aims and objectives. I mean, how far has Israel achieved what they set out to achieve over this past year?
I don't think Netanyahu had a set of aims and objectives. I think Netanyahu was so stunned by what happened on October 7th that he lashed out without thinking and essentially thought to himself, let me bomb the living daylights out of Gaza until I figure out what the strategic aims and objectives should be.
Right.
Netanyahu marketed himself as Mr. Security. Nothing happens under my watch. I have the Palestinians so suffocated. I have them so firmly in an iron prison that is called Gaza that there is no way they can do anything. I have eyes everywhere. I am in charge of security of over 80% of the West Bank. Nothing can happen under my watch. And when October 7th happened, at the scale at which it happened, that surprised everybody, probably including Hamas itself. Yeah. I think that Netanyahu lashed out and thought, hang on a second, this is a disaster. This is the first time Palestinians penetrate Greater Israel, or Israel proper, as they refer to it. And this is the first time they've done so since 1948. And even if they are defeated, the fact that they managed to take me by surprise might encourage other movements to do the same in future, because suddenly now I look weak. Moreover, when Hezbollah's missiles and Houthi missiles are penetrating Tel Aviv, my Iron Dome doesn't work anymore. Suddenly, I'm no longer the invincible army, and I need to kill in order to do the invincible army. Yeah. John Mearsheimer has a very good theory about this. He says that the Israeli policy essentially is that the more I kill, the higher price I make the Palestinians pay, the more hesitant they will be to resist me in future. And I think that was Netanyahu's policy. Let me bomb Palestine into oblivion, so that the next time they even think about revolting against me or trying to take land back, they themselves in their own community will say, don't do it, because the last time we did it, look what happened to us. Let's just accept the occupation. It's the same.
Okay, so yeah, obviously the fear tactic is true. What Brother Sami Hamdi is saying, that Netanyahu, he employed that kind of tactic in order to teach the Palestinians a lesson. But here is what I want to add on top of this. These Zionists, they are evil. They are so evil. I don't want to say the word that they are born evil, because nobody is born evil, but they brainwash their children in schools in Israel, fake state of Israel, to an extent where when these soldiers, they go to war and they see innocent civilians, they see animals. They see themselves as the hunter, and they see those civilians, Palestinians, as the object that must be destroyed. They teach these children in school with images and with videos how to shoot at them. Therefore, the evil that is being embedded in their hearts and minds against the Palestinian people is enough in of itself for the Zionists to commit this kind of genocide over and over again. This is not the first time they have done this. The Zionists, they would not hesitate to do it again and again and again. The whole system is so corrupt, it is so evil in Israel. If you live there, you know that these people, they don't consider anybody outside the Zionist community even as human being. Everybody who talks against them is the enemy of the Zionist entity, the Zionist establishment. Therefore, you are either with them or against them. As a U.S. politician, Joe Biden, Donald Trump, they cannot be with both Palestine and with the Zionists. They have to choose. If they choose to go with the Zionists, that means they must outwardly, not inwardly, outwardly hate the Palestinians and say what will please the Zionists. If they go against the Zionists and they openly support the Palestinians, their political career is over. In other words, these people are narcissists. They do not see things in gray shades. They see everything black or white. Either you are evil or you are good. If you support our evil, you are good. You are our guy. If you don't support us, it doesn't mean that we will treat you as someone who is neutral. It means you are our enemy. That's how they see things. They are narcissists beyond any definition. I mean, narcissism will have a new definition, and that should be Zionism.
That the French deployed in 1945 in Algeria, when a group of Algerians protested in Guelma, Kharata, and Stif after 1945, when the French were liberated from Nazi Germany. When the Algerians came out, and the French were so horrified that an occupied people wanted freedom that they proceeded to massacre more than 50,000 in 1 week. And the aim of the French, in their own document, stated that the reason we wanted to do maximum damage, including the slaughter of women and children, the reason we had to do it was we wanted to impose on the Algerian psyche that the desire for freedom comes at such a high price, it's not worth it. If you dare to ask freedom from us, we will slaughter not only 50,000 1 week, we can do much more. This was Netanyahu's tactic. The problem for Netanyahu, however, is in the pursuit of this tactic, he ended up making Israel a pariah state, because the more he killed, the more his own allies started turning on him. I don't know if you saw that Candace Owens interview last week with Piers Morgan, where she says to Piers, you know my career. I was on the Zionist team for most of my career until I saw the reality of what Israel was doing. They went so far, they alienated even Candace Owens. They went so far, they alienated Tucker Carlson, who's now under heavy slack for interviewing Jeffrey Sachs, because Jeffrey Sachs came out and said that our foreign policy is governed by the Israelis. It's not an American foreign policy. Israel went so far, Netanyahu went so far, there's allies are turning against him. Now, the more he turns against him, Netanyahu's conclusion is they're turning against him because they don't believe I can finish the job. So he ups the ante to try to finish the job, but it only turns more people against him. ICJ starts ruling that Israel must stand trial for genocide. ICC, they threatened Karim Khan with sexual harassment cases. And still he went forward and went for the ICC arrest warrant. They are saying we're going to close the embassy in Ireland. And now Ireland are saying we'll turn it into a Palestinian museum. Netanyahu is like, I don't get it. I'm bombarding these Palestinians. I'm destroying them. And I'm finding myself increasingly isolated. There are Polish media is...
and that's a good point. That Netanyahu, he doesn't get it. He doesn't get it. He is an outcast. The state is a pariah state, Israel. He doesn't get it. Why? Because psychopaths, they are not capable of seeing reality the way it is. They see reality from their own sunglass. They put on sometimes red sunglass, sometimes brown, sometimes yellow, sometimes black. This is not obviously how it works. And this is why these people like Netanyahu, this kind of evil people, why they're so dangerous. Because they would never understand, they will never be able to empathize with other communities. They will never be able to understand the pain that the Palestinians are going through. In fact, they are very, very insidious to the point where they actually gain pleasure by punishing other people, by seeing the suffering of other people.
Reporting that Netanyahu is not going to the Auschwitz memorial because he's worried that he'll be arrested by the ICC. Netanyahu cannot fathom a world in which he kills and is being held to account for it. He's confused by it. Why is the world turning against me? Why am I not achieving my strategic objectives? Which is why he bombs even more. And this is where the mantra comes, in that even though the casualty toll amongst the Palestinians is astronomically tragic, it is Israel that is losing and Palestine that is winning, because options are now available to the Palestinians diplomatically and politically that were not available before as a result of Netanyahu's outrage. And the proof that Netanyahu has no strategy is that Netanyahu bombed Gaza into oblivion, didn't take any land. So he decided to go to the West Bank, and he got tapped on the hand, and Biden told him, hey, the Saudis are saying that they need some sort of PR for normalization. They need a Palestinian state, which is the West Bank, even though you rule 80%. Don't touch the West Bank. So Netanyahu goes north to Lebanon. He's forced into a ceasefire agreement with Hezbollah. Then Syria happens. He says, okay, let me go and try and take Syria instead. He goes towards Syria and finds Erdogan quickly establishing air bases and military bases, because Erdogan can't do anything against the Israelis with Turkey alone. But historically, now he has Syria in his hands as well, and potentially Egypt now panicking, Sisi panicking in Egypt himself. If Erdogan completes that crescent and adds Libya to it, with Saudi Libya too, Erdogan is not bin Zayed or bin Salman. Erdogan is not telling the Israelis, I want good ties. Erdogan is very clearly making it clear to the Israelis, privately, you ask any Israeli, we know that Erdogan gives us sweet words in private, but in his heart he dreams of conquering Jerusalem. They don't say that about bin Salman or bin Zayed. So the point is, Netanyahu realizes, oh my goodness, Assad fell. Israel's plan in Syria, Netanyahu, was that if the Assad regime is there, and the reports now show it from the documents that they captured in Damascus, Assad was telling the Israelis, I'll cut my ties with the Iranians. He was giving them Iranian positions. He was giving them the positions of the Iranian militias for Israel to bomb. Syria under Assad was an impotent Syria. But Syria liberated is now a threat. So now Netanyahu before was only dealing with Gaza. Then he found himself dealing with Lebanon. Now he's got to deal with Syria, and he's got to deal with a Donald Trump who actually listens to Erdogan. Biden only listened to Netanyahu. Nikki Haley in the interview, I don't know if you saw it. She was in the interview and she said, we, the government, the Republican government, need to listen to Erdogan on Syria. We should be dealing more with Erdogan, our partner. You have the Qataris now talking to Donald Trump. Trump is not Biden. Biden is ideologically Zionist. Trump is just a guy who cares about his own PR. He's even appointed the producer of Apprentice to his cabinet. The point that I'm saying is for Netanyahu, the more he bombs, the more he finds himself in a disaster, the more he finds himself in a problem. So when you ask about Netanyahu's strategic objectives, he didn't have one in the beginning. He was stunned and taken by surprise, and he still doesn't have one now. And he believes the more Palestinians he kills, he might force the Palestinians into surrender. And here is the crux of the issue, and this is the point that I finish on. Here is the crux of the issue. The Palestinians aren't surrendering. They're not. In fact, people are even talking about toppling Mahmud Abbas and the Palestinian Authority. The Palestinians aren't surrendering. And to be honest, it reminds you very much. I don't know if you've ever seen the film The Lion of the Desert about Omar Mukhtar and this Inna Lillahi. You actually haven't seen it. A'udhu Billah. I was actually talking to the audience. Asia, the Libyan hero, has just gone like, Muhammad, honestly, I believe that and the message are essential viewing for any child growing up. And you, as soon as you leave here, you have to watch it. So Omar Mukhtar, he knows he's eventually going to get executed and captured by the Italians.
Yes.
So Graziani tells him, I want to understand. They've done the scene wonderfully in the movie, but it's authentic. It's the actual dialogue. I want to understand. You have such weak resources. You didn't have much. Why did you fight us and bring your country to ruin? He said, it was sufficient for us that we fought you. It was sufficient for us that we fought you. Graziani is still confused. So he says to him, how do you feel now that I've captured you? He said, what does it matter? We either win or we die and we go back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Yeah. But you kill me today and you will fight the next generation. And you will fight the next generation. And each generation will fight you until liberation, because it's your occupation that brings the ruin to my nation, not my resistance to it. It's such a powerful scene. I don't do it justice when I say it. It's such a powerful scene that we grew up with. And Umar Mukhtar in the book Muhammad Asad, he meets Umar Mukhtar. And Umar Mukhtar tells him that we're just waiting for the time in which we get captured. Umar Mukhtar never gave up. He said, I'll keep fighting. Fighting is enough. Yes. These Palestinians are not surrendering. They're not giving up. That's why it was fascinating.
This is what I also have said, that it is not about the victory or the defeat of a resistance force that determines its effort. It is really not like that. What we really need to do in order to be victorious is not to give up against oppression. And even though we may not get victory, even though we might not see an end to this genocide in our lifetime, perhaps, who knows, but that doesn't mean we have lost. People who are fighting against oppression, they're never the losers. It is always the oppressors who are the losers. And the oppressors are always psychopaths. They are always narcissists. And what is happening with this guy, Netanyahu, is exactly what has happened with the previous oppressors. They put them on a pedestal. They believe that everybody is below them, and that if you are not with me, then you are a threat for me, and that's how they roll. Netanyahu is by default, the Zionist state by default is going to lose this war. Today, tomorrow, maybe 5 years down the road, 10 years, it is impossible for them to hold on to this oppression and bullying other nations and remain in power and remain as a state in the Middle East, in the place of the Palestinian, by doing what they're doing right now. Because by default, this kind of tactic, the warmongering tactic, the fear tactic, by default they're bound to fail. And this is what we see even today, when we see that people are shunning the Zionist regime. Brazil, they have arrested, or they wanted to arrest this Zionist soldier in Brazil. They are not getting any refuge anywhere in the world. They're getting humiliated every single day. Why? Because they don't understand that the whole world works in a completely different way than the narrative they have set up for it to work for them. And this obviously lunatics are pathetic, and they're losing, and they're bound to lose.